In this video, I'm going to cover how to set up a quiz inside of Brightspace and turn on Respondus for the quiz. So first thing you want to do is go into the course that you're going to be working with. Head to Assessments and then go to Quizzes. So you'll follow all the normal steps you would take to build a quiz in Brightspace. So we're in the Quizzes area. We're going to go to New Quiz. We'll give the quiz a name. So I'll call quiz number 1. And right here, you'll see the Add Edit Questions button. If you select that, this is where you'll start to build your questions at. So if you have questions within the question library that you've developed already, or maybe you've brought over from a previous course, you can bring those in right from the import button here. If you're going to be building a quiz from the ground up, you want to start with the Add button here. Go to New Question, and then you can see you have different types of questions you can start to build. So I'll just do put true and false for the first one. So we're going to enter the question text here. So the week has 7 days. The answers, you're going to select the answer, so that's true. And then you can specify the points on here. Now if you hit the Save button, it's going to go right back to that quiz creation area. So you can see that we have our question here now, and then we can proceed to go back to Add, New Question, and then choose our question type. So we'll do another true and false question. So we have our question text in here. Again, we'll select our answer. But now what we can do is we can click on the drop down here next to Save. And if we go to Save and New, that's going to take us right back into the true and false question setup. So I'll do that, and you see I'm now in a new true and false question. So I'll continue with that. I'll choose my answer, I'll hit Save, and now I'm back at the main menu and I can see the 3 questions that I've made so far. I'll do one more here, some multiple choice. So for multiple choice, you're going to be able to enter your answers in here. If you need more, that's fine. You just click on Add Answer here and you can add as many as you need. Or if you want to remove them, you can also click on the X's over on the right side. You'll enter your text for your questions. And same with the true and false, you're going to click on which one is the correct answer. Up here under options, we have a few different things that we can choose. So you can add feedback. This will give feedback for the answer if they choose one or the other. You can work with hints as well if you want to do that, maybe for a practice quiz. Custom weights, the way this works is that you can choose, okay, we'll say maybe you want to give people 50% for one of the options, or maybe they have to, maybe one's going to be worth 100, one's going to be worth 50, that sort of thing. So you can play around with the weights for your question answers and the results. Numeration is going to be the way it looks when it's presented, so you can see the A and B. If we change that to numerical, we have the numbers over here. So you can use these if you want to add them in. The randomized answers for students down here. So what's going to happen if we choose this? Every time a student takes this quiz and receives this question, the answers will be in a different order. All right, so I have 4 questions in my quiz now, so I'm going to go back to the settings for quiz number 1. I can now see that I have those questions here. I can shuffle them at the quiz level by choosing this option here. So what will happen again, sort of with the answers, is when a quiz is taken, it will choose a random order of these 4 questions. To adjust the questions that are on each page, you're going to enter your value here. So maybe I want 2 questions per page. I'm going to put in a 2 and hit apply. And you can now see that there's the 2 pages here, page 1 and then page 2. You can adjust these on your own as well without having the system do it for you by hovering over this line and going to the left, and you can see that there's a box that shows up. If you click on that box, it's going to add in another page. So I can either click it to add it or to remove it. If you want to prevent students from moving backward through the pages, you can also select this option as well. So what happens if this is selected is that after question 1 and 2 that are on the first page, when they hit page 2, they can't go back to page 1. The restrictions up at the top. So by default, all quizzes are going to be hidden from your students. You have to make sure you turn this off before the quiz is going to happen. The due date, the start date, and the end date. So the start date is when the quiz is available for students to begin working on it. So you can select this and choose a date and a time. The due date is sort of a rough deadline. After the due date, students can still go into the quiz and they can take it and complete it. Whereas the end date is after that time, students can no longer take your quiz and complete it. So down here, you'll see the timing. Recommended time limit, that's just how long this quiz should take you to complete. It's not going to stop you if you run out of time. It's just going to say, okay, it should take you, I don't know, no more than 5 minutes. Whereas the enforced time limit, if you select that, and if we put a time in here, so we'll say 5 minutes and a 1 minute grace period. You have to have at least a single minute for grace period. You can't put 0 in there. So make sure you have at least the 1. So the enforced time limit, you then choose what will happen after this time limit and then the grace period has been achieved. So you can let the student continue working, you can stop them from making any further changes, so then they'll have to submit their quiz, or you can give them an automatic 0. One thing to keep in mind is that for the end date and the end time, so let me set this for 3:30 p.m. on the 13th of June. What's going to happen is that even if a student starts this quiz at 3:29, they're still going to get the full 5 minutes plus the 1 minute grace period. So it is worth telling your students that they need to have the quiz completed and submitted by 3:30 at the latest. I'll also have to account for that as you do the grading. Underneath assessment here, this is where you can link the quiz with a grade item. I don't have any grade items set up in this course at this time, so I can't show you an example of that. So once we have the initial quiz settings on the Properties tab, we'll head to Restrictions. So by default, your quiz is going to be hidden from your students. So you need to make sure that before they can start taking it, you deselect this option here. Now, I'll leave this turned on for now because I want to show you how it behaves if you do accidentally leave the Hide from Users switched on. So due date, start date, and then the end date. So the start date is, of course, when your students can begin taking the quiz. So if you turn this on, you can click on the calendar area. You can choose your date, so we'll choose June 8th. And then if you select a time, you can then choose a time, or you can also enter a time as well. So maybe I'll do 12 o'clock p.m. The due date is more of a soft deadline. After this date and time arrives, students can still come into the quiz and they can still complete it. Whereas the end date actually shuts the quiz down completely and then students can no longer finish a quiz attempt. So if I turn that on, set that for the 10th. So the quiz will run from the 8th until the 10th. And I'll change that to 12 p.m. as well. So essentially what this is now saying is that the quiz opens on the 8th at 12 and then closes on the 10th at 12. So once we have the dates set up here, we'll scroll down to the timing area. So we have two options. We have the enforced time limit and the recommended time limit. The recommended time limit is essentially only telling students that this quiz should take you 5 minutes to complete. If you do use the enforced time limit, you can actually specify how long they have to complete the quiz. So for this one, I put 5 minutes with a 1-minute grace period. Now you want to choose what happens after this 5 plus 1-minute grace period is going to be reached. So you can either allow the student to continue working, you can prevent them from making further changes, which means they'll then have to submit the quiz, they can't do anything else, or they get an automatic 0. So I'm going to choose the second option here to prevent them from continuing to work. And now I'm going to save and close this. So I'm back in the main quiz area here, and you can see that there's an eyeball with a slash through it next to my quiz. So if I hover over that, it's going to say that it's hidden. So that was because I left that option selected. So what I need to do is either go into the drop down, choose edit, head back to restrictions, and then deselect that hide from users box, or I can click on make visible to users from this drop down menu. So if I select that, the eyeball goes away and the quiz is now active. Students can start it at 12 p.m. on June 8th, and it will run until June 10th at 12 p.m. So now that my quiz is set up, I want to turn on Lockdown Browser for this quiz. So I'm going to go to the tab up here, Lockdown Browser. And I can see over here that my quiz number 1 is listed. I'm going to select the drop-down menu to the left of the quiz name, and I'm going to choose the settings option. So the first thing I want to do is turn on Require Respondents Lockdown Browser for this exam. I'll select that. Now I have some settings that I can adjust. So the one that I want to make sure I have turned on is to lock students into the browser until the exam is completed. So what happens here is that after a student starts an exam, they are going to be stuck in that exam in the browser until they submit it. So they can't get out and then come back again. They have to complete it and then submit it. You can allow them to use an iPad using the app. And you can also give them options to have like a calculator. You can print things. So maybe if you want them to submit something to the Dropbox after the exam is completed, you can do that as well. Or you can give them access to certain sites. If you will be using Monitor as well, you can also select that here. So this is just the summary of what Respondents Monitor is going to be used for. I'm going to hit the continue button. Then you can choose the options. So once you've chosen everything that you need, you'll hit the save and close button. And now if I go back to manage quizzes, I can see that the quiz name has changed. And now it requires Respondents Lockdown Browser to complete the quiz. So this quiz is now set up and ready to go for students.